Ethan stood in the doorway, the letter trembling in his hand. It was a sunny afternoon, but the warmth outside couldn't penetrate the icy chill that settled in his chest. The words on the page were written in Claire's neat handwriting, a confession she hadn't meant for him to find. Claire, his wife of 12 years, had been unfaithful. The letter wasn't to him, but to someone else, a lover she had been seeing for over a year. It detailed the stolen moments, the shared laughter, and her longing to leave Ethan, though she hadn't yet summoned the courage to do so. Ethan's world tilted as memories of the past year surfaced. The late nights at work, her sudden disinterest in their conversations, and the frequent girls' nights out. He had dismissed the signs, trusting her completely. The betrayal cut deeper than he could have imagined. That evening, Claire returned home, greeted him with a smile, and kissed his cheek. Ethan felt his stomach churn. He decided not to confront her immediately. He needed time to think, to plan. He couldn't let his anger dictate his actions, no matter how much it burned inside him. Over the next few days, Ethan gathered evidence. He found hotel receipts hidden in her purse and read through texts she had forgotten to delete. Each discovery was like a dagger to the heart, but he steeled himself. He didn't want revenge. He wanted clarity and, ultimately, justice for himself and their 2 young children. When Ethan finally confronted Claire, it was in the calmest voice he could muster. They sat in the living room, the kids at a friend's house for the evening. He laid the evidence on the coffee table and watched as her expression shifted from confusion to shock, then guilt. "I never wanted you to find out this way," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "How did you want me to find out, Claire?" Ethan's voice was steady, but his eyes burned with unshed tears. "By you packing your bags and leaving one day? Or when the kids asked why Mom wasn't coming home?" Claire broke down, apologizing profusely, but Ethan couldn't hear her. The love he had for her was now buried under layers of betrayal. Divorce was inevitable, but Ethan wanted more than just legal separation. He fought for custody of their children, citing Claire's infidelity and emotional neglect. The court proceedings were grueling, but Ethan's resolve never wavered. He was determined to protect his kids from the fallout of Claire's choices. In the end, the judge awarded Ethan full custody. Claire was granted visitation rights, but the arrangement was clear. Her choices had consequences, and her children's well-being came first. Months later, as Ethan tucked his kids into bed, he felt a bittersweet sense of closure. The betrayal had shattered his family, but it had also revealed truths he could no longer ignore. Justice, though cold, had been served, and Ethan was ready to rebuild his life, with honesty and strength guiding his path forward. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan found himself adjusting to his new reality. The house, once filled with laughter shared between him and Claire, now carried a different kind of warmth, a sense of purpose and resilience as he focused on his children. He immersed himself in their lives, attending school events, helping with homework, and ensuring they felt loved and secure. But the pain of betrayal lingered like a shadow. There were moments when memories of Claire would surface, her laugh, her touch, the life they had built together before everything fell apart. Ethan wasn't sure if he missed her or the illusion of the woman he thought he had married. Claire, on the other hand, struggled to adapt to her new role. Her visitation days with the kids were awkward at first. They didn't fully understand why their mother no longer lived with them, and their confusion often turned into resentment. Claire tried to bridge the gap with gifts and grand gestures, but what the children craved was consistency, something she had failed to provide in the months leading to the separation. One afternoon, during a drop-off, Claire approached Ethan with a hesitant smile. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice tentative. Ethan nodded, though his guard remained firmly in place. They stood on the porch, the children inside. "I know I've made mistakes. Huge ones," Claire began, wringing her hands. "I just want you to know I'm working on myself. I've started therapy, and I'm trying to figure out how I became the person who hurt you and the kids so deeply." Ethan studied her for a moment. There was a vulnerability in her eyes he hadn't seen in years. "I appreciate that," he said finally. "But it doesn't change what happened. Our focus has to be on the kids now. They're the ones who matter most." Claire nodded, tears welling up again. But she didn't argue. She knew the trust between them was irreparably broken. As time passed, Ethan found solace in small victories, his daughter's laughter as they baked cookies, his son's excitement after scoring a goal at soccer practice. He also started to focus on himself, picking up old hobbies and even tentatively exploring the idea of dating. He met people who reminded him that love didn't have to be synonymous with betrayal. While he wasn't ready to fully open his heart again, he realized he deserved happiness, too. One evening, as he sat on the couch reading, his daughter climbed into his lap with a book of her own. "Daddy," she said, looking up at him with wide eyes, "are you happy?" Ethan paused, considering her question. He thought about the pain, the healing, and the journey ahead. "I'm getting there," he said, kissing her forehead. "One day at a time." And for the first time in a long while, Ethan believed it. Months turned into a year, and Ethan began to see tangible progress in his life. The routine he had built for himself and the kids gave them all a sense of stability, something that had been sorely lacking before. His daughter, Mia, and son, Lucas, were thriving in school and seemed to have adjusted well to their new reality. Claire's efforts to rebuild her relationship with the children were ongoing, and though Ethan remained cautious, he allowed her more space to prove herself. Therapy seemed to be helping her. On some occasions, Claire would share insights from her sessions, how she was confronting her own insecurities and mistakes. While Ethan appreciated her attempts to grow, his focus was no longer on their past, but on the future he was creating without her. One day, Ethan received an invitation to a charity event through a colleague. Reluctant at first, he decided to go, encouraged by friends who believed he deserved a night out. The event was a gala, complete with elegant decor and a buzzing atmosphere. Ethan, dressed in a tailored suit, felt a bit out of place, but was determined to enjoy the evening. That's when he met Olivia. She was the event organizer, a woman with an infectious laugh and a sharp wit that immediately caught Ethan's attention. They struck up a conversation about everything from the event's purpose to their favorite books. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a spark, a genuine connection. Olivia, it turned out, had her own story of heartbreak and healing. Their shared experiences created an immediate bond, though neither rushed into anything serious. They exchanged numbers and began meeting for coffee, talking for hours about life, parenting, and their hopes for the future. Ethan's children met Olivia several months later. She was warm and understanding, never pushing too hard to insert herself into their lives, but always showing genuine care. Mia adored her almost instantly, and even Lucas, who was more reserved, warmed up to her over time. Claire, upon learning about Olivia, had mixed feelings. While she was happy that Ethan had found someone, it was also a stark reminder of what she had lost. Yet, she chose not to interfere, focusing instead on strengthening her own bond with the kids. As the years passed, Ethan and Olivia's relationship deepened. They built a blended family that prioritized love, respect, and open communication. On a warm spring day, surrounded by their closest friends and family, including Claire, who had come to support the man she once hurt, Ethan and Olivia exchanged vows in a small but heartfelt ceremony. Looking out at the people who had stood by him during his darkest moments, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Life hadn't turned out the way he had envisioned, but it had brought him to a place of peace, happiness, and love. The cruel truths of his past had shaped him, but the cold justice he sought had ultimately led to something far greater, a life rebuilt on trust, resilience, and hope. As the years rolled on, Ethan found himself reflecting on the twists and turns of his journey. His marriage to Olivia brought a stability and joy he hadn't realized was possible. They worked as a team, not only for themselves but for their blended family, ensuring that love and understanding remained at the core of everything they did. Mia and Lucas grew into compassionate and driven young adults. Their bond with Ethan was unshakable, built on the foundation of his unwavering support during their formative years. They also maintained a cordial, though somewhat distant, relationship with Claire. While they loved their mother, they understood the choices she had made and the impact they had on their family. Claire's life had taken its own path. Though she faced challenges in rebuilding her personal and professional life, she eventually found a measure of peace. She remained a consistent presence in the children's lives, attending milestones and sharing moments that mattered, though always as a visitor to the family Ethan and Olivia had created. One pivotal moment came years later when Lucas graduated from college. The ceremony was a grand affair, with Ethan and Olivia seated proudly in the front row, Mia beside them. Claire arrived later, sitting a few rows behind. After the ceremony, Lucas pulled his parents, Ethan, Olivia, and Claire, aside. "I just want to say thank you," he began, his voice steady but emotional. "To all of you. For everything. It wasn't easy, and I know it hasn't always been perfect, but I had the support I needed to get here because of all of you." The moment was a reminder that, despite the pain and challenges, their family had found a way to move forward. Claire gave Ethan a small, appreciative nod, and for the first time in years, he felt no bitterness. The past was behind them, and all that remained was a shared commitment to their children's happiness. Years later, on a quiet evening, Ethan sat on the porch of his home, now nestled in a peaceful countryside. Olivia joined him, 2 steaming mugs of tea in hand. "You seem lost in thought," she said, handing him a mug. "Just thinking about how far we've come," Ethan replied, smiling at her. "It wasn't the life I planned, but it's better than I ever could have imagined." Olivia squeezed his hand, her eyes soft with understanding. Sometimes the hardest roads lead to the best destinations. As they sat together, the sun setting on the horizon, Ethan felt a deep sense of contentment. The pain of his past had been transformed into strength. He had built a life filled with love, surrounded by people who mattered most. In the end, the cruel truths and cold justice had paved the way for something extraordinary, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. The years brought more milestones and new beginnings. Ethan watched as Mia graduated with honors, stepping into a promising career in education. Lucas, who had found his passion in engineering, moved across the country to work on groundbreaking projects. Though the house grew quieter with each passing year, it never felt empty. Ethan and Olivia embraced the shift in their lives, using their newfound time to travel and pursue their hobbies. They explored quaint towns, hiked scenic trails, and even started a small garden in their backyard. Each moment felt like a celebration of the life they had built together, a life born from resilience and love. One summer evening, Mia and Lucas came home for a visit. They brought their partners, filling the house with laughter and conversation. Over dinner, Mia made an announcement that caught everyone by surprise. "I have some news," she said, her cheeks glowing with excitement. "You're going to be grandparents." Ethan froze for a moment, his fork halfway to his mouth. Then, a grin spread across his face as he stood and hugged his daughter tightly. "Mia, that's incredible," he said, his voice thick with emotion. The announcement brought new energy to the family. Ethan and Olivia threw themselves into preparations, turning one of the spare rooms into a nursery for future visits. Claire, too, joined in, her excitement matching everyone else's. The shared anticipation further softened the edges of their fractured past. When Mia's baby girl was born, Ethan held her tiny form in his arms and felt a wave of emotion he hadn't expected. She was perfect, a reminder of life's ability to renew itself even after heartache. The family's bond deepened with each visit as the new generation brought everyone closer. Ethan found himself sharing stories of his own childhood, his voice tinged with nostalgia, while Lucas played the role of the playful uncle. Olivia, ever the nurturer, seemed to glow in her role as grandmother. One day, as Ethan sat on the porch with his granddaughter asleep in his arms, Claire came to visit. She looked at the scene before her. Ethan, content and fulfilled, surrounded by the family they had once dreamed of building together. "You've done an amazing job, Ethan," Claire said softly, her voice tinged with both admiration and regret. Ethan looked up at her, a faint smile on his lips. "It wasn't just me. It took all of us in our own ways. The past didn't define us, it shaped us. And we all grew from it." Claire nodded, her gaze lingering on the baby. "I'm glad you found happiness. You deserved it." "So did you, Claire," Ethan said. "I hope you found it too." Claire didn't answer right away, but smiled faintly. "In my own way, I have." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Ethan felt a deep sense of peace. The life he had built, the love he had found, and the lessons he had learned were all reminders of the journey he had endured. The cruel truths and cold justice of the past had not been the end of his story. They were simply the foundation for something greater, a life filled with love, forgiveness, and the promise of new beginnings. As the years passed, Ethan's family continued to grow, not just in size, but in depth of connection. Mia's daughter, Lily, became the light of Ethan's life. Every visit from her was a whirlwind of giggles, curious questions, and boundless energy. Lucas, inspired by his niece's wonder, began to talk about starting his own family, though he joked he needed to find the right partner who could handle his engineering quirks. Ethan and Olivia's bond deepened with each passing year. They embraced their roles as the anchors of the family, hosting holiday dinners and summer barbecues that became cherished traditions. Olivia often teased Ethan about his obsession with perfecting his grilled steak recipe, but it was the warmth and laughter around the table that made those gatherings unforgettable. One crisp autumn morning, Ethan decided to take a walk through the woods behind their home. The golden leaves crunched underfoot, and the air carried the faint scent of pine and earth. These walks had become a daily ritual for him, a time to reflect on life and soak in the simple beauty of the present. As he stood by a small stream, watching the water ripple over smooth stones, he thought about how far he had come. The pain of Claire's betrayal, once so sharp and all-consuming, had dulled into a distant memory. In its place was a deep gratitude for the journey he had undertaken, a journey that had led him to Olivia, his children's successes, and the joy of being a grandfather. Ethan also thought about Claire. Their relationship had evolved into something he never expected, a cautious but genuine friendship. She had found happiness in her own way, moving to a nearby city and dedicating her time to helping others through volunteer work. While their paths had diverged long ago, they had managed to come together for the sake of their family. That evening, as the sun set in hues of lavender and gold, the entire family gathered at Ethan and Olivia's home. Lucas announced he was engaged, and the room erupted in cheers and congratulations. "To new beginnings," Lucas said, raising a glass. "To family," Mia added, clinking glasses with her brother. "To everything life has taught us," Ethan said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "The hard lessons, the unexpected turns, and the love that carries us through." As the night wore on, Ethan sat back and observed his family, the smiles, the shared stories, the easy camaraderie that filled the room. Life hadn't unfolded as he had once planned, but in many ways, it was better than he could have ever imagined. It was messy and imperfect, but it was real. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Ethan leaned into Olivia's shoulder, her hand resting warmly on his. He whispered, "We did it, didn't we?" She smiled, her eyes sparkling. "We did. And it's beautiful." And as laughter echoed through the house, Ethan closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. It was the sound of love, resilience, and a life truly lived.